Thank God it's Monday. It's time for All In, episode number 12. This week, I'll take you to Northern Thailand where I interview Paul Vernon, a missionary to the Akha people. You're going to enjoy this. Hit it, Elizabeth. You're listening to All In. This is the podcast dedicated to helping you fulfill the mission of God in your life and around the world. I'm your host, Chuck Woodward. Hey everybody, welcome to today's broadcast. It's my special privilege today to introduce you to Paul Vernon. Paul's a missionary. He and his wife are missionaries in North Thailand, and you're going to enjoy getting to know this young man and hearing his story about what God is doing reaching the Akha people. First, we got to meet you, Paul, personally, face to face. I think we were in Keystone, Colorado several months ago. I'd heard your name a number of times in various missionary meetings because we both work for Foursquare Missions International, but I hadn't had the privilege of meeting you face to face yet, and so it was good to spend some time with you there, and it's taken us a little while to be able to sit down here on Skype and talk, but welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm really pleased to be here. It was great to meet you too, and it's always wonderful to meet people that you've had names for the longest time, but no face.
Yeah. Hey, I've heard bits and pieces of your story over time, and I'd like to get it straight from you. What's going on there, and give the people that are listening an opportunity to hear about what God is doing in you and through you, reaching the Akha people. And let's begin with that. First of all, tell me, who are the Akha and where are they?
That's great. The Akha people, there are about 2.5 million of them, and they live in 5 nations in Southeast Asia: China, Laos, Myanmar or Burma, Vietnam, and Thailand. Most of those Akha live in China. Originally, they came from Mongolia and southern China, and political and economic changes have driven them further south. Most of the nations that they live in, they're obviously a minority people. There's no Akha nation. And so they're dealing with being a minority people, a minority language, a minority culture. Many of the nations that they're born in do not give them citizenship at birth, even if they're second, third generation in that nation. And so in many instances, there are people without a country. They've also, unlike some of these other people without countries in these nations, especially in the nation of Myanmar, however, they've never been an organized armed people group. So they have no refugee status anywhere in the world. They've basically just been at the mercy of the armies and governments in each of the nations that they've lived in for the past century, really. In Thailand, there are about 100,000 Akha, and that's where we're living and focused. But the Akha we're working with are then working with Akha in each of the nations that they live.
Okay. So right now you are in North Thailand, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now I was watching on your website, your vernonjournal.com. You've got this great little video with one of your daughters walking through the house, showing us where the storage is at for Sunday school and your bedroom there. That looks like all of you sleep in the same bedroom. Is that still the case?
In our village home, that's true. Okay. We have 2 lives here. Okay. We have half of our life, which was in the village, and that's how our ministry began. Our ministry began by us living full time in a village. Okay. We had a bamboo hut, grass roof, dirt floors, all of the things you expect from a village life. We didn't have a bathroom for a year. I had to walk down a mountain to get to the bathroom, and just an amazing experience. But that was really the only chance for us to learn Akha as a language. Okay. And so we lived in the village for the first 5 years of our ministry. Since then, it's been 10 years. It'll be 10 years February since we were sent out.
Okay.
These last 5 years, most of our living focus has been in the city. That we're partnering with a foundation called Akha Outreach Foundation. Okay. And so I live and work in the city, working with them, and then whenever possible, we still return up to the village and give our kids the chance to continue to build the relationships and language that they have there.
What's the name of the city that you live in?
The city we're in is called Chaiang Rai.
Okay.
It's one of the northernmost cities in Thailand, near the northernmost point where we cross into Burma. But the village that we're from is called Mesalong, which is a beautiful mountainous area about an hour and a half northwest of here, right on the Burmese border.
Okay, great. So you were deployed in 2004, correct?
Correct. We were deployed. We left our jobs in the end of 2004 and finished our FMI training in January of 2005. But we were on the field in February.
Okay.
So our funds had already been in place, and so we were just waiting for the prayer and the commission and the release.
Now, where was home for you in the U.S.?
I'm from Colorado, and that's where I met my wife, Lori, but she's actually from Oregon.
Oh,
so
okay. You married a good Northwest girl.
Exactly. So we've got good relationships both in the Northwest and in Colorado.
Okay, great. Tell me, how in the world did you end up in Northern Thailand doing this?
That's a long story, but I'll unpack it quickly for you. When I was just out of high school and had just started college, I was going to an engineering school in Colorado, and honestly was pursuing the Lord to drop out of school and buy a one-way ticket to somewhere in the world and begin serving. I was a little disillusioned with all the people looking for the money and the job and to get back at the world for everything, and I was just frustrated by that vision. And was seeking the Lord in prayer one night, specifically about dropping out of school, and really didn't get any response. Spent a long time just praying in the Spirit that evening, and it was a Saturday night, and went to bed that night, middle of the night, 4 a.m, woke up wide awake, and only because I just spent that time with the Lord did I think maybe there was something here. So I hopped out of bed and prayed a little and said, "Okay, God, if you have something for me, give it to me, otherwise I'll go back to sleep." And I audibly heard the word Thailand and was thinking I'm hallucinating at 4 a.m. This is ridiculous.
Now, had you ever been to Thailand before?
Never been to Thailand. In fact, I said, "Okay, God, Thailand, that's neat. I pray for Thailand. If you have anything else, you have to show me more." And he showed me an image of what the outline of the nation looks like. It kind of has a long tail on the western end, and most of the nation is in one center of mass in the north. And so I turn on my light and I pull out a world map, and I am scouring Africa for a nation that's shaped like this, because I'm sure that's where God's sending me, right, to Africa. And finally find it over in Southeast Asia, and never, I'm a Colorado boy, I'm a meat and potatoes kid, and never ate rice in my life, and was shocked at the idea of my exposure to Asia was I'd been to Chinese food a couple of times, so I had nothing there.
American Chinese food, right?
Exactly. So the next morning, I woke up and went to church. I was going to a large non-denominational church in Colorado at the time. Pastor hops up, he speaks for a few minutes, and then he says, "That's all I have this morning. We have a special guest." And up walks a missionary to Thailand. And so my jaw's just on the floor, and the Lord was really just speaking to my heart. And she continued to share. Nothing about the ministry she was talking about really inspired me, but she said at the end, she said, showed a picture of a road and said, "The roads in Thailand are terrible, so if any of you are civil engineers, we could use some civil engineers in Thailand." And that was the field that I'd been studying in school. And so there's just kind of a 24-hour period where God gave me a very specific word, and then encouraged me that I was supposed to stay in school and keep going to college. A couple years later, I met my wife, Lori. We met at a coffee shop concert in Colorado, and the night we met, we just spoke with each other about our hearts for missions. And she was fluent in Spanish and assumed that she was going to go to South America somewhere, and I said, "Well, I have something about Thailand, and I don't know what it's about." But we kind of connected, and it turned out she had received her call to be a missionary at 6 years old. She's a little kid. Her mom asked her, "What are you going to do when you grow up?" And not a doctor, or nurse, or ballerina. "I'm going to go be a missionary." And that was something that she really held in her heart her whole life. And so as we began our relationship, just kind of were praying over how do we navigate this, this South America thing and something about Thailand. I heard that the missionary's husband was coming, and he was an Akha man, and he was going to come and speak. So I told Lori, I said, let's just go and we'll listen to this. And I don't, it's a huge church. We can't go up and meet him or anything, but we can go and listen to him, and it'll be a great opportunity. And we went, and it was an evening service, and he hops up there and starts sharing, and I look over, and Lori's just weeping. And we have no idea what he shared that service, but she just wept the entire service. And as we left, she said, it's not just Thailand. It's the Akha people. It's this people group. And so that was in 1998. We were married in 2000. Worked out some of our early marriage years and served in a Foursquare church in North Glen, Colorado. And then we're finally commissioned to the field in 2005.
Wow. Now, when you moved to North Thailand, you started working with the Akha people. You had to go through some language training and stuff, correct?
Exactly.
How was that?
That was a process. Language learning is humbling at best and humiliating more frequently.
Yes.
It's a story of, but language learning is a love story. And language learning is saying, I am willing as an educated adult who, has all my ducks in a row to just completely undo myself and speak like a 2-year-old or 3-year-old. Because I believe that you're so valuable that it's worth this effort for me. And Lori and I have really found that the Akha people are so mistreated in the nations that they live in. In fact, a story our director's wife always shares, when she first arrived, she would go to the stores and be meeting the English-speaking locals. And they would say to her, why are you helping those Akha people? You could be teaching English to my children. And she said, but they're all on drugs and they're being sold into prostitution, and they're just so hopeless. And the response was, and it's not a condemning response of the worldview, it's just an observational response. Her response was, that's what they're for. That's what those people are for. Those people are supposed to be the poor people. They're supposed to be the downtrodden, the worthless. And as we walked through the language learning together, we got to see a piece of what that was like. To live in Thailand for 3 years and 4 years, and still not speak Thai well, and still not speak Thai fluently as our Akha was growing. Many people would say, you've lived here this long, and you don't speak Thai. And I say, well, we speak Akha. And the response of just like, what a worthless decision that was. What a terrible idea that was. But once we reached the point where we spoke the language well enough and it became our heart language, we'd go somewhere, we'll go to a night market or something, and an Akha woman will be walking by selling little bracelets or something, and we'll greet her in Akha and say, Grandma, how are you tonight, and what's happening? And she'll just drop her basket and sit down and say, why do you speak Akha? You tell me what you're here for. Where did you learn Akha? Are you Akha? What's happening? And they will just force us to witness to them in the first 20 minutes of conversation as they're pulling out, why is it that you are speaking my heart language? And it's such a blessing, and so worth all those years of humiliation. And
that's amazing. It's interesting to hear you tell the story of this oppressed people. Here in Europe, we have, I don't know if it's very similar or comparable, but with the Roma people, commonly called the gypsies, which, a lot of people don't realize, but that's a very derogatory name to call them. It's kind of like the N-word. Yep. But the Roma people are a people without a state. They're a subculture and very much discriminated against, kind of seen as, well, they're always the criminals, they're always the beggars, they're always the pickpockets. Pretty much, you go to some pockets, some countries, any problem in that country is because of those people, because of the Roma. They're the criminal elements, they're the ones who are ruining. Is it similar there?
Very much so. There's a lot of just assumption. I mean, Lori almost started a war one day when she was putting a pregnant Akha friend of ours on a bus, and a woman stood in the door and says, "No, that woman doesn't come in the front door," and sent her to the back of the bus. I mean, just that kind of response to people. At the same time, Jeff, and this is what's so exciting over this last decade. The Lord picks up the lowest, and He makes the last first. And Thailand as a nation are really an unreached people. That there are people. We hear the number 99% of Thailand is not saved, and Christian or Catholic, Protestant Catholic. And as we hear these kinds of numbers and responses, we are seeing a completely different story among the Akha. Akha Outreach Foundation and our director Ajay, who is Akha, has really just served their people so intentionally and so humbly and lifted them up in such a way that we are seeing a massive revival among the Akha in northern Thailand. And we're seeing the outpouring of the Spirit. We're seeing healing. We're seeing life. We're seeing a people who were emotionally dead and who would hang their heads now walking proudly and wearing the colors of their nation, wearing the colors of their people with such pride and such just joy because God has met the Akha in their language and in their culture and in their space.
That is great. I noticed when I was doing a little research for this episode on your website, you mentioned two key values that you have. One is ministering holistically, and the second is to embrace the Akha culture. Unpack those two for me.
Well, there's a lot there. Holistically was a long lesson for us because we came here first with the heart of thinking, we'll drive kids to school or whatever. We'll help with the foundation however they want. We'll serve in the local church. We'll clean bathrooms. The typical missionary zeal when you get off the bus. And our director sat us down and they said, you guys aren't here on a short-term trip anymore. This is a long-term vision for you. And to do that, you need to figure out a way. You need to figure out how you're going to make it through that long term. And they said, we think you need to do that by learning the Akha language. They encouraged us. They set us up in the village. And as we were there, our first response, we were there and we see these kids, they're so dirty, and the adults, they're so drunk, and they beat their wives, and the drug abuse is so terrible. And we need to get drug rehab programs in here, and we need to get, education for how to clean your kids and these kinds of things. And one of the best words that we received right when we began our missionary our lives as missionaries was from the missionary to Thailand, Kelly Hildebrand. He sat us down right off the plane, and he said, for 2 years, don't give your opinion about anything, don't teach anywhere, just learn. Learn language, observe it all. And of course, you can't completely do that, but that became a value for us. And as we sat and first it's God's grace, because you don't have the language, so you can't speak out what you want to speak out when you see things happening in front of you. And that silence really, really was valuable to us, because over the years we saw this isn't just, these problems that we see are all just the surface problems. They're all just the fruits of the deep emotional problems, of the deep spiritual darkness that this people is in bondage to. And the solution is to bring light and life there first. And it's a slower solution. It's not as pretty. It's just going and shining things up. And so we as we saw that and learned that, and said, it's not about cleaning your kids. It's about, you love your kids, and there's ways that you can show them love that's culturally appropriate for you. Because it's not a huggy, lovey, or wrestling kind of culture with their kids. It's the kid's in the way, they're going to knock them out of the room. And so how do you marry that mother who wants to love their child with a culture that wants to teach that child respect? And so we found methods to say, okay, we're going to create spaces for the kids to play and be wild and be crazy, but still give them the boundaries and respect that they need to learn. So Laura and I kind of changed our approach, and we said, instead of us deciding what needs to change in this culture, let's find out what the culture is asking for. And we found that the biggest struggle that our village specifically was dealing with was in health and in health care. They had access to a clinic, but the clinic, all the language of the clinic obviously was in Thai, and all the professionals and doctors who were there only spoke Thai. And they were great servants to be there to serve that region, but the Akha felt so insecure in those environments that whenever they were asked what their symptoms were, they would get too nervous and they would just say something that was either wrong or not enough or whatever, and so they weren't being cared for. And so we said, okay, well, we can do something about that. So we began bringing doctors in. And as we brought the doctors in, we did all the translations, so the doctors just began to teach Lori and I how to diagnose common village ailments. Our approach really just changed at that point. We understood that holistically, to take care of someone, to us, what that meant was to take care of the needs that they see first, so that they might understand how much we care about their deeper emotional and spiritual needs. Oh, cool. And so we began to just, as we could, we would just purchase medical supplies and medicines. We met a group here that sold antibiotics and these kinds of things in bulk that we could get and distribute in the villages. And we began to go around into villages and just share our love for the Akha people by showing up, speaking in Akha, telling them that their hurts are real hurts, that we value their hurts, that we understood them, and doing something about them right there. And over time, dentists began to come, and they kept telling us, you guys should be doing this. You guys should be doing tooth extractions up in these remote areas. There's just nothing worse than a toothache, and we can train you to do this. And we were resistant for a long time, but as the village and our Akha friends just continued to express that need to us, we finally even broke down and learned that. And in the past, probably 3.5 years since Lori and I were trained in exodontia by some oral surgeons and dentists who came out, Lori and I together have pulled over 100 teeth in various villages and among our Akha friends.
That's amazing. That's
amazing. So
I have horrible images in my mind of this process taking place. There were a lot of. I mean, I was the one avoiding the dentist growing up, and so I had no desire ever to be a part of that. But when you love a people, you really grow to the point where you say, whatever that people need, we're willing to do. That's the key.
Yeah, and so that's really reflected what the heart of Akha outreach is and what they do as a whole. Their vision is we want to raise Akha men and women to speak the Akha language and serve the Akha people where they're at and at their need.
That's great. And a lot of times missionaries get a bad rap because perhaps because of historical situations where missionaries have been part of a colonial or imperial process. Sure. Where you go in and you try to civilize the savages, as it were. But you've really embraced this kingdom concept that you find in the scriptures where, in Acts it talks about how God has shaped the nations in order that they might feel their way towards Him, and redeeming the culture and finding the ways that God has already been working in every people group in the world, bringing them to Himself.
That's right.
And you've found the secret of that, or the kingdom concepts behind all of that.
Yeah, and Jeff, it doesn't exclude you from being accused of those things. And the fact that we work with the minority people as missionaries, we're often accused of horrific things by people who are just opposed, frankly, to the church. Yeah. But you can't listen to that noise either. You have to love the people for who they are. You have to meet them where they are, and you have to show them the kingdom.
Yeah.
One of our favorite verses is, we tell our Akha friends that they are written specifically about in the Bible, and they say, no, they're not. So of course they are. It said, every tribe, every language, every people, every nation shall be in that choir together, and that joy of our Akha language will be in the eternal chorus of languages is such a powerful thing to a people who feel so put aside.
Yeah. What have been some defining moments for you as you've been on the field?
That's a really good question. I think as in life, some of your most defining moments are just the most difficult moments that you go through. Our second or third year on the field was really just one of the worst years of our life. We had a miscarriage and lost our first child. We had a home in the U.S. and it was right in the middle of the economic collapse, and we had to sell. We lost our renters and we had to sell the home, and effectively we had to pay someone to buy the home from us, and lost everything that we had in that. And we had some relatives who died in the same year, and it was such a horrific thing, one event after another, and we were just blindsided by it. And our response was simply to go back and say, all we know is that God has called us to Thailand. And so we just kind of dug our heels in and really accomplished nothing other than staying on the dirt and staying inside the boundary. But through that, we saw God's faithfulness. And we were pregnant with our eldest, Abigail, who you spoke of earlier, who was in our video. And the next year, and as missionaries, we took a bath for some $30K on our home, which on paper is literally impossible in a missionary salary. You cannot lose that kind of money.
No.
but God carried it, and God carried us through. And so that was something that really prepared us, I think. And we've had other stories like that. We had 1 month a few years later, about our 5th year, where our wallet was stolen. So we had to cancel all of our ATM cards, which was the only way that we could get funds at the time. So we had funds in the U.S., but no way to access them. And we had about a month and about $30 in our pocket. And we'd already promised a woman from our village that we would take her to the hospital and pay for her hospital bill that month, which ended up being about $22 of that. And so in that month, when we knew we had the funds but no access to them, we just lived on $8 as a family and never went without a meal, never went without gas in our vehicle, never went without anything, and just saw God provide in such amazing ways with, a meal with friends on a night that we didn't expect to. And we had some tight nights too, where we were eating ramen noodles and cutting the budget. But just seeing God's faithfulness in those moments when our world seems to be falling apart has really helped us as we're ministering to people whose worlds have fallen apart, and to show them that this is a God who genuinely knows your story and genuinely cares about it.
Tell me something in Akha. Let me hear what it sounds like.
Na adamian gadidimia. That was effectively, I love the Lord with my heart, with all my heart.
Wow. What have been, while you've been there on the field now almost 10 years, coming up on your 10-year anniversary, what would you say are the greatest joys that you've experienced while being there?
Oh, it's happened, praise God, it's happened more frequently recently, especially I'd say in the last 3 years. But there's those times when you're having the conversation, when the fact that we can have those deep heart level discipleship conversations with people is such an encouragement to us. But even when you can have them, it doesn't mean it's always going to click. But those times when we've been in the conversations, and we have 3 or 4 people who we've been very, very close with. One is a girl who came to live with us when we were pregnant with our eldest Abigail. So Abby grew up with her as her big sister. Her name is Esther. And when she came to us, she really came as a young girl who was just not confident in herself and in her status with who she is before the Lord, and really a scared little girl. And today, she's in fact she's in this building right above me. I'm at the foundation right now, and she's in class upstairs at the Bible school here. She's completing her 3rd year this year. She'll be finishing it up in March and has her service year next year. And she'll be a graduate from the Bible school. But we've had so many conversations with her where you saw the light go on. And the question of, does God really love me that much, flips, and it becomes, God really loves me this much. And those are the moments that it's all worth it. You can lose everything in the world for those moments.
Yeah.
Those are the moments that can't be stolen from them. Those are the moments that when the world falls apart again, that relationship, that genuine connection with the Father is what's going to carry them through.
That's so true. That's so true. And there's no civil engineering job in the world that can fill that void, is there?
Right. That's exactly right.
Hey, if you had a time machine and you could go back to February 2005 and have a conversation with yourself, what advice would you give?
That's a very good question. We say all the time we went through the training in Los Angeles with FMI at the time, and every piece of that information was so critically valuable. But we were so naive to the world we were about to step into that we just weren't able to take it in. So I think maybe the best advice I could have given myself at the time was have patience, because you'll get there. Because we stepped off the plane and we were ready and we were at our new home and we were going to change the world. And there's a lot of hard lessons along the way. But as you're patient through them, as you persevere through them, but the fruit has been so worth it on the other side.
Yeah. Well, isn't that the truth of it? We start off young and full of vim and vinegar and thinking we're going to change the world, and we find out that God's more interested in changing us first.
Well, that's exactly right. Yeah. That's dead on. In fact, it's neat that you mention it. One of the most amazing things for us in these years has been FMI's care for us by sending people to Asia as teachers and as mentors, and especially with the group, the Bar One group at Baroni, who has adopted 3 Roma children, which is a neat circle. But she's really spoken incredibly into the lives of Lori and I, and has really given us just that spiritual nourishment that we've needed as we've been so isolated on the other side of the world for a decade. Continue to feed us and challenge us and remind us of how good God is, and call into question our actions when they don't reflect God's goodness.
If people want to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
Facebook is a great way to get in touch with us. You can find us on Facebook at paul.vernon or lori.vernon, Lori.vernon. You can also find us at the blog that you mentioned before, vernonjournal.com.
Okay. Now, I would imagine as a missionary, you probably have all the money and partnership that you need, but just in case somebody wants to partner with you, and I say that all tongue-in-cheek, we never have enough of anything, it seems like, but God is always so faithful. But if people wanted to partner with you, where would they go to find out how they can help out?
One of our greatest needs right now, Jeff, is for people to partner with us broadly through Akha Outreach Foundation towards the project that we're working on to translate the New Testament into the Akha language.
Okay.
We have a team of Akha leaders who have been working on this translation for 15 years and are coming near to the end of the New Testament translation, but they're going to go on and continue translating the Old Testament. And really, what the funds are needed are to bring our team together. We have a leader in China who has a team there. We have a leader in Burma, and actually a team of leaders in Burma, and a team here in Thailand. We also bring young Laotian Akha believers in from Laos and gather them all together twice a year to do mass face-to-face Bible translation in addition to all the annual stuff that team is working on. So we would love for people or churches, if they would like to be a part of helping us in our heart and to serve the Akha, to join us in supporting this project. And the best way to do that actually is to just start by contacting us on Facebook and say, we want to help you guys get the Akha Bible translated and distributed, and we can talk more via Facebook.
Okay, that's great. What an amazing thing to be able to give the Word of God in their mother tongue.
It is the most exciting thing that I've ever gotten to observe, and it's not. The most beautiful thing is I don't do the translation. Lori doesn't do the translation. This isn't missionaries doing the translation. This is Akha leaders who are creating the scriptures in their own tongue, and watching them as they just wrestle through each verse until they get to the inspired Word of God it is one of the most exciting things I've ever seen.
I can only imagine. You know, as a native English speaker, we're fairly spoiled. You know, we can have. I've got an app on my phone. I think I must have 15 English translations. And here you're ministering to a people group that they don't even have it in their own mother tongue. You know, they don't have to. They don't have to worry. Should I use the English Standard or the New Revised Standard or the New International Version? They don't have that problem. Right. Their problem is they don't have the Word of God.
Let me clarify, Jeff. There is a translation. It was the original Wycliffe translation that was done by missionaries, which has been a tremendous blessing. But it is a translation that reads with an accent. Oh, okay. It's a translation that reads with a foreign voice.
Okay.
And so the translation that we are working on, that we are serving as the team that's working on it, is the native voice translation.
Oh, wonderful. Well, good. That's going to be great. It's them putting the scriptures into their own language. That is amazing.
It's exciting.
That's very exciting. Well, Paul, I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be with us today, and it's been a real joy. And I hope that people out there will reach out to you, be praying for you, you and Lori and your kids. How many kids do you have now?
We have 3 kids. Abigail is 7, Isabel is 4, and Jack will be 1 at the end of December.
Amazing. And were they all born there?
Every one of them was made in Thailand.
Good job. Well, God bless you guys, and may His grace pour down on you in great abundance in all that you guys are doing. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Jeff. God bless.
Well, we're done now. Thanks for listening. This is Jeff Roper reminding you that the mission of God is too grand for mediocrity or average living. You were created for a purpose, and that purpose is found in the mission of God. It's your life. Now go live it.